Hi, welcome back, everyone. And thank you for joining our webinar today. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. As you all know, we're going to talk about the very important topic of cybersecurity automation in the 4G and 5G in the era of AI. And what we're going to essentially cover today is the dynamic landscape of cybersecurity and how automation has become very integral given the process-driven security requirements on one side, and that's also stemmed from the rising of cyber attacks on one side. On the other side, the guidelines and policies are also incrementally increasing with each passing day. At the end of this webinar, we are also going to have a Q&A, and we're also having a section where we're going to talking about tackling the 4G, 5G threat landscape and custom solutions for advanced network security. And the whole session is going to be covered by our product manager and lead, Kirill Puzenko, who's with us right now, and will be just starting around. But before I pass on to Kirill, I would like to tell you a few basics for making this webinar more engaging and inclusive for all of us. So while I'm going to be your host for the day today, I'm Sonali. If you feel there's any hiccup that you face, you have a chat window down below. You can put in your request there, and I'm there. I'm going to be there to help you. If you feel that the chat is not enabled for you, you can also raise a hand and tell me that there's something that you need help on, and I'll be there to help you. The other thing is that through the whole process where Kirill is going to talk to us about this topic, if you feel you have any questions, you have any suggestion, or you may want something to know more, you can put in your questions in the Q&A window. Now, with this, we can save our time. You can get your questions answered while we are going through the process of presentation. At the end of the presentation, again, we have kind of a 15 minutes, 20 minute slot reserved for a dedicated Q&A. So if you have any more questions, you can put in that point as well. At the end of the presentation, the recording, we're also going to share it with you all so that after this webinar, you can go through it. You can share it with your fraternity, with your friends and network. And if you want to know anything else, there's also going to be an email that we're going to append where you can reach out directly to Kirill and our team for any details or suggestions that you may have. But with this, I would say sit back, enjoy the webinar, and I'm passing it on to Kirill, our product manager. Kirill, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Sonali. So hello, everyone. So we finally start the webinar about cybersecurity automation, right, in the 4G and 5G in the AI era. And yeah, probably some of you actually know that we talked about the products before, probably a couple of months ago. And if you did attend the webinar about the threat-informed defense, right? And we also discussed the role of the people, right? The specialists that performing the tasks. And now we feel that it's time to actually talk about how these people actually build and follow the processes and what roles they play in security, right? And how you can combine this everything into the concept of cybersecurity. So yeah, today we're going to talk about the automation. Just a couple of words about me. For someone who don't know, my name is Kirill Puzankov, right? And I am 10 years into specifically telco security, and I am being a product manager in Security Gen. So I've been exploring the threats and vulnerabilities starting from different protocols, like from SS7 up to 5G. And right now we're growing solutions for protection of mobile core networks and providing the network visibility and network security posture. So at this step, right, let's make an intro to the cybersecurity automation. The automation cybersecurity it has been a favorite topic, right, at the conference for already some time ago, right? And must be said that the use of automation in some cases is actually appears actually at a certain level when the company reaches a certain level of maturity, right? And speaking about precisely the automation that is aligned into the telco networks, right? How can we reflect to this, let's say, telco aspects? That's what we're going to discuss today. And first of all, I would consider that today we're going to be listened by two different groups of people, right? So first group is the ones that are not sure, like, is automation is really important, or like it can be done in any other, let's say, subsequence of products, installations, services, etc. So the ones that have not yet decided if they actually need the automation, right? So because the issue that arises here is typically the sole responsibility of the network, right, is referred to the network department guys, while the security part is handled by the security department, of course. And sometimes there's been a conflict of interest that arises over there. And the second group is the one that we think that people who already understood that comprehensive protection is needed, right? And they just need an examples like how you're going to create the automation around the systems already persisting in the network, and the ones that are required to add up, right? And I'll try to do my best to please both of these groups, right? So, couple of words about like what is security automation. Well, for the beginners, like we can be clear, like automation is needed for processes. So if there are no processes, then no automation is required, of course. And processes are the constant, let's say, subsequent of events, right? And that are designed to perform some specific relevant tasks. And most of you already know that there are, let's say, the frameworks that helps to structurize these processes, and one of them is NIST. So, and recently they actually released the newer version 2.0, right? For the NIST approach, which actually covers more steps, which actually added the newest step, the govern one. But anyway, let me quickly go through all the steps that the NIST contains. So first of all, the pillars, right? First of all, the first one is identification. So it's about identify, like develop and understanding for you to be able to manage cybersecurity risks to systems, assets, and data. So you need to be able to understand like what are your, let's say, crucial points that you need to focus, what are your infrastructural points, and actually what kind of assets can be potentially vulnerable, right? So the second one is about the protect step. So protect is about implementing preventive measures, right? So safeguards to ensure that you deliver the critical service in a safe way. So detection step is about the company being able to implement activities, right, that can actually indicate and identify the occurrence of some cybersecurity events. Respond actually refers to development and implementation of the activities where you can take appropriate action based on the detected cybersecurity event. And the recover, the step that was in the first version of the NIST, right, is about the development and implementation of appropriate services and activities for the personnel and services to be able to recover and restore any configs and capabilities and services that were actually impacted during the event. So, and right now we have the newer edit step, which is like you can call it a pillar, which is govern, right? And govern, with the addition of this govern step, like as a new function, this framework actually includes focus on governance. So like it emphasizes on the importance of the leadership because of the policies and strategies in cybersecurity risk managers. So automation, right? Like if we speak about 4G and 5G, why do we need specifically for these protocols? So as I already mentioned, if processes already exist, there must be an employee, right, in the company who would like to take these processes, to move these processes in an improved or accelerated manner, right? And they usually initiate the increase in the level of automation, because if you want to make something work in a structured way, and you want it to be automated. And for telco operators, this can be a challenging task, right? Because let's say if you talk about the internal customer in a telco network, the security automation is responsibility is usually, let's say, the customer, right, is the security person. But when we talk about the actual assets in the telco network, right, it's usually goes into the owner of the system of the network equipment, and this is the network department. And here we can face the conflict of interest, right? Because the network department usually tends to work in a way that we are providing the service and everything works fine, but security aspect is not their sole responsibility, right? And if we talk about the telco market, there are, let's say, telco security market specifically, there are several myths and errors that we can actually discuss, right? So first of all, it's relying exclusively on technology and standards, and believing that, let's say, 3GPP or whoever it is, has foreseen everything, and let's say there is a modern word like secure by default, right? And a hacker will not get through. Well, it has been attempted in 4G network when diameter was created. It is now attempted in 5G network, but what we can see is the actual networks are really bringing vulnerabilities. Apart from the everyone, let's say everyone willingness to build a network as a secure by default, right? The second one is about where you listen to the network equipment vendor supplier who convinced that the system is secure because it fully complies the standard of 5G or best practices. But I mean, you cannot really, let's say, trust a specifically single vendor about this. And the third one is about the binary protection device, for example, a firewall, of course. No one tells that the firewall is not required. Of course, they are. But you shouldn't expect that this is going to be, let's say, a golden box that will protect you from everything, and the hacker will never be able to get through, right? So these are the misconceptions that we discussed, right? And our goal is actually to build an adequately protected network and to automate the processes inside to give an efficient protection for this network, right? So if we go for and explore, for example, the Mitre matrix, we know that attackers are evolving their tactics quite a lot, and they study and evolve for sure. And this kind of, let's say, the tactics and attacks has been categorized in the several categories, right, by the organization of Mitre. And we can see that right now we have 144 the methods that the attackers can use to achieve their goals, right? And yeah, of course, they are evolving, right? And of course, what we need to do is to analyze which of them are actually the practical ones and which are not, right? So because let's say some of the methods, right, if they are not actually in the kill chain, in the step-by-step implementation, they might not be as dangerous as they supposed to be, right? And 144, we can see that there is quite a lot to take care of. And in Security Gen, we continuously work to expand our abilities to detect, to mitigate, and to protect from the threats, right? And so far, like we analyzed this Mitre matrix, so far we've identified that 83 of the methods and of attacks actually covered by our solutions or services, right? Which is about like 60% of the available methods described, right? And it's not that, let's say, something super new that in IT networks, this in IT security specifically, this threat-informed defense is quite known, right? So we are evolving in terms of, let's say, our methods covering, etc. But every organization has to actually think like how to effectively use this kind of, let's say, metrics, right? And how to identify if your network is actually vulnerable to specific attack vectors, and if it is, to perform the proper prioritization. So how do we identify the actual threats, right? And here I would just stop and reshare to the video, right? Talking about our breach and attack simulation platform. So we were talking about the first, let's say, NIST pillar is about identification, and specifically we're going to share how we are doing the identification. So hopefully you can see my screen right now, and it actually talks about the ACE, Artificial Cybersecurity Expert, which is a breach and attack simulation platform that allows the organization to actually test their network and see which kind of vulnerabilities, right, are relevant to a specific network. So you can see here on the list of plans that you can go ahead and run, right? The inspection plan, it will utilize different methods, attacking methods, and will show you the status in the real time. And then you have the access to the information of the outcomes, and you also get to use and get to download the report that has contained the aggregated information about the threats, about the statistics, graphs, etc. So this is it. So it's about being on the wave of security, right? So you get to know your threats before they're actually being exploited, right? So let me reshare back. Hopefully you see the presentation. And yeah, so then if we talk about the next chapter, it's about the protection. So we talk about the proactive protection. Of course, again, the firewall are needed. The firewalls are required. And here we talk about protecting all the generation of the network. So starting from 2G to 5G. So from GPRS till 5G network. And the firewalls that I actually installed on the border of the network, the core network, protecting the core network elements like NRF, AMF, DRA, STP, SGSN, etc., right? Essential for the network. And they protect from the malefactor that is sitting in the roaming on the interconnect that can get access from whatever operator or whatever IPX and actually get the message sent into the network through this connection. So yeah, so firewall is required, definitely. And the best practices are presented by GSMA in the standard like FS11, FS20, etc. And this has to be implemented. So if we go to the next step, and we actually explore the example with the firewalls, right? And let's talk about specifically GTP. So what is GTP, right? So GTP is a tunneling protocol that processes the data. And it is utilized in 2G, 3G, 4G. So in all the, and 5G as well, for sure. So it is utilized in all the generations of the protocols, right, to transfer the internet data. And if you talk about the perception of the GTP, because it actually processes the user data, many of the operators perceive that the IP firewall that is, let's say, designed to work with the IP data traffic is actually designed to work with GTP, but GTP data traffic is not about only the data, but GTP is also about the communication protocol, which is called GTPC, right? And if we talk about, let's say, GTP security, and if we look at the actual stats of this, what we can see is the majority of the network are exposed to these GTP vulnerabilities to quite wide range and quite a wide variety of threats, right? There is a misconception that the ISP-grade routers and firewall are designed to protect the GTP networks. Yes, they are in terms of the user traffic, but when we talk about the control plane traffic, it's not what is perceived to be handled by the IP routers, right? And we actually see insufficient protection, resulting in a wide range of possible attacks on the EPC core, from denial of service to data interception. And the recent case you probably heard with GTP door, right, is like another example of the lack of protection, and where the GTP protocol is actually used as a transport to transfer some controlling information. So I mean, I'm sharing this with you, right? Not to say that everything is bad and the situation is crucial, right? But just to highlight that these kind of things are actually possible. So you can see the statistics presented here, and we just need to grow together, like, and decide how to make it better, right? So the next one. So then one of the pillars, right, is also about the detection, and detection is usually implemented by the intrusion detection systems, right? So security specialists must always be aware of what's happening around them, and that is specifically for what the IDS systems, right, are designed for. So here in the telco core networks, right, so we implement intrusion detection system that is sit in between the STP and the IPX provider that actually analyzes the traffic flows that come from the roaming interconnects, and analyzes the traffic flow, call flows, and finds some malicious patterns that might trigger these attacks, right? And we were talking about GTP door just a minute ago, right? And let me just quickly share like how it can be implemented in the system, right, to identify it and to actually protect. So hopefully you can see it. Yeah, hopefully you can see it. So if not, please let me know, although I don't have direct access to the chat. But anyway, so we can see that here is the list of attacks, right? And we can see attack type GTP door. So the recent one. So once it's been identified, right? So we can see the details of the attack. We can see the source, target, destination, right? And we can see the details of the echo request that actually has been the trigger of the attack. And what we can also do is just go ahead and create a firewall rule right from these ideas, right? And it will suggest, let's say, the basic functionality like message of the condition, like message type, echo request, and source IP. And of course, you can enrich it with whatever you want, like adding destination IP, etc. So this is how it works. Of course, in order to not be able to prevent the actual traffic flows, the commercial traffic, which is not an attack, you have a system that actually indicates, that detects the anomalous activity, and that's where you can work forward, right? So regarding the effectiveness and measuring of this, so we are familiar with the capability maturity model integration methodology, which is used in actually evaluating processes worldwide, and it is also actually applicable to cybersecurity. So the maturity level is actually achieved through an integrated assessment, right, of many and different parameters, and encapsulated in the triad of people, processes, and technology. So as I already said, there are many processes, and there is always room for the improvement, right? But as a modern paradigm of security, even if the breach has, let's say, has been exploited, right? No matter how expensive the protective measures we purchase, right? And no matter, let's say, what level of security specialists and their tasks is today, but one important parameters is to evaluate how well this infrastructure is performing, and how effective it is, and how quickly actually you get the information about the incident, and how effectively you prevent the consequences of the intrusion, right? And here the threat intelligence is the key, actually. I think, again, some of you probably attended previous webinars and already seen these slides, but anyway, I'm going to repeat. So the chess players, right, they tend to study various techniques and tactics of the attacks, and they can respond without hesitation because they know the different combination going into several steps ahead, right? And if we try to work as, let's say, security professionals and following this approach, we need to know all the tactics and attacks that the intruder might have. And for this, of course, we are taking information from the offensive testing, of the security monitoring, incident investigation, researches, and industry collaborations, right? And we process this information, analyze and structurize it in the format so that it's going to be, let's say, in some kind of knowledge base, and that's going to be applicable, right, to different systems, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and of course the knowledge of our experts by default that are doing security assessments. And yeah, so if you look at these pictures, just the picture of the network, right? And dig more into details, like what we have here. We have intrusion protection systems, right? Some kind of firewalls, IPX provider, clients, ecosystem, so different kind of models, not specifically related to security, but just at an organizational level, right? Switches, etc., different applications. And this is where we deploy the monitoring models. So to be able to actually detect the intruder at the very first steps, right? So if we imagine there are bad guys, these monitoring models will notify the SIM or SOR personnel about some kind of intrusion happening, attacks or whatever. And should the bad guys actually initiate their bad activities, we have a chance to prevent further intrusion, right? So this information is being communicated to this personnel and the response systems, and this actually triggers for the personnel or automated system to go ahead and create the firewall rules, for example, on the left side, or isolation of the bad guy on the right side. So just, let's say, block the IP address until we identify if this activity is legal or not. At least we had some triggers, right? And that's actually how it works. So if we actually look at the situation when everything is normal, the situation is calm, right? But during this period, you shouldn't waste time, right? But you should actually exploit and test your network if it is vulnerable currently to the known threats and to maybe some kind of even 0 days. And for that reason, of course, you use the breach and attack simulation platform, right? And you have this kind of training alarms, training blockage, and you actually estimate like how effective and how fast your system are able to identify and are able to protect from the following intrusion into the system, into operator network. And this simulation, they generate, right, these let's say training alarms, and they both educate also the personnel and the tools that you currently have, and they help you to manage the situation and to improve it to a better state. So like this. So, and sometimes it is actually beneficial, right? So previously we talked about the internal testing, but sometimes it is beneficial to actually invite an external team to test the network, like conducting cyber drill. And let me just give a couple words about cyber drill. So what it means. So it's usually, let's say, unites the efforts of teams within the operator to check the effectiveness of processes and correctness of this kind of division of responsibilities for the teams, right? And actually helps to identify how effective teams actually cooperate and work together in order to eliminate the threat, prevent something, or react. So it's not usually, let's say, mentioned, right? But we know that we're all human, and we all know about human errors, right? And the conflicts that might arise between, let's say, blue team and red team. So that's why it's kind of effective to get involved in an external team to check how you actually cooperate. One of the last slides, I guess. So, and speaking about what has not been discussed today. So we haven't said a word about the complication as a result of wider AI adoption. So regarding the artificial intelligence, right? So the use of artificial intelligence, of course, will be growing, right? And going to be increasing significantly. So this trend is expected to continue year over year, right? And it is likely gonna positively impact on the let's say shortage of skilled professionals, because let's say a lower skilled professional with the help of artificial intelligence might be performing the same tasks in the same effective manner, right? However, there are also some kind of, let's say, drawbacks, right? It will likely to lead to an increase of cybersecurity resources, let's say, required to secure IT systems. So let's say the greater automation will require more data and applications being involved. And another thing is the let's say you all know that spread of AI generated deep fakes, etc., like that targeting facial biometrics, etc. They have widely spread right now, and it will probably bring us to another, let's say, authentication channels, authentication solutions, because these might not be treated as respectful or secure, right? So speaking about the Open RAN and search for new businesses, right, and the APIs. So speaking about Open RAN, so it's a nice way of building, let's say, telco networks that lets different parts of the system talk to each other more freely, right? And inevitably, it expands the threat landscape, right? Managing this kind of system can become very sophisticating, and the complexity can lead to some security gaps, etc., and that the malefactors can take advantage of, right? It's also very important to check not just the general security measures, like how the data is stored and protected, but also check the special attention to unique parts of this Open RAN system. So sometimes, let's say, people in charge of these systems are actually might accidentally make certain entry points to open and become the targets of the targeted attempts. And keeping in mind all of these challenges, right? Those people who operate Open, they need to, let's say, constantly update how they work, which kind of tools they utilize, and the methods of operations, right? Because the way that the people, let's say, used to work in a natural, in a previous, let's say, approach of the network might be different to it, and it's actually changing the mindset of these operations, right? Speaking about the regulation and certifications, oh, sorry, first of all, regarding the APIs, it's almost the same. So it's not about how hard it is to protect APIs. In fact, it's not that hard, right? But you can imagine the number of APIs used and their overall usage, right? And exposure of such interfaces. You can just treat these kind of numbers to the number of potential channels, right? Like a targets for an attack. And if you create a large surface with a large amount of APIs, then you need to be very well prepared in order to be protecting this kind of surface quite carefully, right? And it's not a big secret, right? And yet it's not, let's say, commonly protected all over the place. And I guess you all seen news about massive data leaks regarding that. And not to forget about the supply chain, because the sometimes it's easy just to hack a smaller segment, right? Smaller partner or whatever, and then just go through this partner into the targeted infrastructure. And the last point is about the regulations and certification rules. So it's clear that the regulation and certification are inevitable. And sometimes when they are implemented in a smart way, they actually can introduce the value to industry. But we also shouldn't forget that there might be also some negative implications. negative implications that are presented in the form of certifications that actually bring little value, but this certification, well, it's the right thing. So of course it is required, but sometimes, let's say, too many certification schemes, they can bring pain, right? Just in order to receive for the software a really small value, and will make the process of implementation of security solutions or whatever a bit harder. So, and now let's say the question arises, like, how does this availability of this certification and this kind of functionality helps to ensure that the systems created with these certified blocks or are well protected? Well, to me, it seems that it might be one of the most appropriate ways for all stakeholders to be involved in the certification process. So it shouldn't be pushed like from the top, right? But the departments that actually are involved in this kind of process should also, let's say, share their opinion, and that should be considered. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope you had questions, and you're welcome now. Yeah, if you thought that I'm alone here, I have some colleagues helping me on this webinar, so probably some questions has been answered. So I guess I give the word to Sonali and to share the questions. And
Yes. So thank you, Kirill, and thank you,
thank you.
audience, for listening to the presentation by Kirill. We have a few questions, and I will read those out to you, and you can help address those. So the first question, Kirill, to you is, which pillars or parts of the described automation process are the most widely deployed?
The most widely deployed of the NIST approach, right? If I understand it correctly. Yeah, so probably, so if we actually, if I can go to this slide. So when we talk about NIST, right? So probably the most one is the protection. So let's say, from taking it from the experience, right? The operators tend to go for the direct and let's say straightforward approach. So like, if I want to prevent something, I need the protection. I need a firewall. I will install the firewall. I will set it up, and it's going to help me. So I would suggest, so the protection part is quite, let's say, well spread, and the most, let's say, commonly utilized step for the operators to rely on, right? So maybe we can also include here the respond part and recover, but identification and detection steps, I think they're quite commonly missing, because let's say some organizations are, well, are just trying, are just reaching this level that they do require these kind of steps as well. But of course, we are seeing a big progress among the operators in terms of this, and well, like, the NIST approach is not something that is cut in stone and you have to follow it, but and the processes in every organizations are unique. But let's say from year to year, we see the progress in terms of the ability of the companies to actually to identify the threats, to protect from the threats, and to react. So, and specifically with the cyber drills that we perform, we can actually, let's say, observe these kind of actions on the customers.
Okay, thank you, Kirill. The next one is slightly lengthy question, but here I go. There are many vulnerabilities in enterprise software, so many that NIST is almost giving up on registering them now. What about telecom systems? Is the vulnerability management that dynamic?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because of course we are all informed about the IT and the measurement about the like CVSS system, etc. In telco, well, they're not let's say the order of the vulnerabilities is quite lower, right? But also this kind of, let's say, if you imagine a knowledge base, it is like exists and it grows, and of course it allows the vendors like us to gather this kind of information and knowledge in the IDS system, in the firewalls, right? To be able to provide the rules, specific rules to withstand the attacks. And of course, the knowledge that sits in our experts that can utilize this in the assessments. So, when we talk about the telco vulnerabilities, well, it might seem that it's not that structurized, like when we talk about the IT, right? But anyway, there are systems, there are organizations like GSMA, etc., that actually helps to gather this and helps to have the identified, unified approach, right, for the operators to follow.
Okay. Kirill, one more question that I can see. Okay, this question is, why is threat intelligence so important? Isn't it clear what to protect against, as the GSMA has already specified how to protect the core networks?
Well, it's again, well, also a good question. It's again about the knowledge, right, about the threat landscape, etc. So, like, if you take the, for example, the recommendations, you install the firewall, you'll implement the rules. Well, someday, even if your, let's say, your firewall is well deployed and there are no, let's say, bypass ways, sometimes you're gonna get an attack happened into your network. And it's about the knowledge, and as you can imagine, right, the knowledge of the hackers that are trying to penetrate the network usually go before the actual, let's say, protective measures. So it's quite important. So if on one side of the world, right, in one country, something happens, it might also touch, let's say, another operator. So keeping this kind of knowledge, right, and keeping it up to date with the vendors that can provide you with threat intelligence, right, with this kind of, let's say, threat attacks vectors before it actually goes public, before the vendors implement the patches based on the published information, right? It's also very important to have, let's say, this kind of insight from the vendor that can deliver this to you.
Okay. All right. One more question here, Kirill. And the question is, what about ENISA's 5G security guidelines and the cybersecurity matrix? Are they addressing the same issues, or is it a different approach?
Yeah, it's about quite the same. So when we talk about, let's say, 5G Mitre, ENISA, 5G landscape, right? They're addressing around the same kind of, let's say, landscape and same kind of vulnerabilities. So yes, you can treat this also applicable to this for sure.
Okay. I guess this is largely, the questions also, we are heading very close to the session timing. So I guess this is very good. Thank you so much, Kirill.
Thank you to all the
But
attendees as well.
sorry,
And
Kirill, sorry, I have
yeah.
to take this last one.
Okay,
And
yeah,
audience,
sure.
bear with me, but this is very important and sounds very interesting. So please tell me more about the Maitri matrix. Is it same as for the IT assets?
Well, it's actually being done quite similar. So let me try to open it. So yes, so you can see that it is quite coming from the IT background. So basically the steps, the distribution of the methods, right? It's quite similar to the IT, and it is also applicable to the IT. So when we talk about 5G, 5G is not only the telco, right? It also had the IT infrastructure. It also has some virtualizations, NFVIs, etc. So Yes, of course, it is very connected, and you can see a big connection in terms of the methods and attacks, and also the means of prevention for these. So probably like when you see 5G Mitre, you're like connecting it to the IT approach of let's say security, right? So yes.
Okay. But from there, there's also a subsidiary of that question. Does this also mean there are many ways to hack 5G?
Well, it's it's kind of a broad question. Like, what do you put inside many? I mean, there are ways, and it has already been, let's say, proven, right? Although everyone wanted to build the network like 5G network as secured by default, there are ways, and at this step, there are not that many, let's say, 5G roaming interconnections to check like how these threads are, let's say, exploitable in the IPX, in the roaming interfaces. So once the network will grow, we're gonna see. But of course, the vulnerabilities are there, and we have to protect. We cannot rely just on the standard, on the infrastructure of the network.
And Kirill, as you know, on this topic, as much as we talk, it just keeps coming up. So there's one more question which has just popped
Sure,
up,
sure.
but let's take this one, please. Are all of these methods actually proven? Can they be detected or mitigated?
I would just ask what kind of methods. If you talk about the Mitre matrix, right? So the methods that are put there, of course, they are proven. But in terms of the methodology to prevent this or to detect, it's up to, let's say, every company, every customer that has a different subset of equipment. Like if they are able to detect it. So we are trying to operate on our solutions, and we explore each of the methods and tactics described in the Mitre, and that's why, let's say, we realize that 8.3, if I'm not mistaken, right, can be covered by our services or products, right? But it's a totally different situation in every operator, in every vendor and customer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Kirill. It was wonderful to know about this topic and address all
Yeah,
the.
thank you, everyone. And of course, if you have any further questions, so let's just leave the email that you can address to for questions that has been left.
Yes. So
Sonali, can you please put into the chat, because I guess we
I
don't have
will.
it on the deck. Yeah, please.
Yeah. What I'm also going to do, everyone, thank you very much for being with us and asking some interesting questions. What we are going to do as a follow-up is we're going to share with you a recording of this webinar in that email and on LinkedIn. I'm also going to share with you our contact ID where you can connect with us or connect directly with Kirill and get your questions answered. So this is how we're going to follow up on the webinar. But once again, thank you very much. And thank you for your interest in our webinar and the topic for the day. So have a good day and we'll catch you soon again. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.